I never thought Father's Day would be the day my world shattered like cheap porcelain. On that humid June morning in 2024, my son, Ethan, rolled up to our sprawling McMansion in upscale Plano, Texas, grinning like he'd just won the lottery, towing a $45,000 Harley-Davidson Fat Boy behind his F-150. He handed the keys to my husband, Richard, his father-in-law now. Technically, since Ethan had married into the viper's nest that was Richard's family 6 months prior, while I stood there in the kitchen, apron dusted with pancake flour, clutching a mug that read, "World's okayest mom." But it wasn't the inscription that gutted me, it was the hidden message etched inside, revealed only when the coffee sloshed. You were always second. Time to switch. That mug wasn't a gift from Ethan. It was from Richard's sister,
Victoria.
the ice queen of Dallas high society, slipped into the pile like a Trojan horse. And in that moment, as the men revved the engine and laughter echoed off the brick facade, I felt the first crack in my soul, not just betrayal, but something far worse, the dawning horror that my life, my body, wasn't mine anymore. I'd been living a lie for years, bearing the scars of sins that weren't mine, all because of a secret buried deeper than the oil fields of West Texas. But that mug? It was the spark. And hell hath no fury like a woman who's been body snatched. The Plano suburbs stretched out like a bad dream you couldn't wake from, manicured lawns the size of football fields, McMansions with 3-car garages stuffed full of toys no one used, and air thick with the scent of fresh-cut grass and unspoken resentments. It was the American dream on steroids. The kind where everyone smiled for the gram but whispered poison behind closed doors. I'd built my life here after marrying Richard 25 years ago, back when he was just a hungry oil exec climbing the ladder at ExxonMobil. And I was Olivia Hargrove, the wide-eyed nurse from a nowhere town in Oklahoma who'd traded scrubs for suburbia. We had Ethan, our golden boy, who grew up with Little League trophies and a trust fund that could choke a horse. Life was good. Or so I thought. That Father's Day started like any other, me flipping pancakes in our granite-countered kitchen. The kind with sub-zero fridges that hummed like judgmental ghosts. Ethan burst in at 8 a.m. sharp. His fiancée, no. Wife now, Lila, trailing behind like a shadow in Lululemon yoga pants. Lila was Richard's niece. A fact that always twisted my gut like a bad burrito from Torchy's Tacos. Family ties in the South run thicker than sorghum syrup. And thicker still when money's involved. Richard's clan, the Ashfords, were old Texas money, cattle barons turned real estate moguls, with a sprawling ranch outside Fort Worth that made our place look like a starter home. Ethan, baby, you're early, I said, wiping flour from my hands on my jeans, the ones with the frayed hem from too many PDA bake sales. He hugged me quick, all cologne and confidence, his buzz cut fresh from the barber. Mom, you gotta see this, he said, eyes sparkling like he'd aced a merger at his finance gig downtown. That's when the roar hit, the Harley pulling into the driveway, chrome gleaming under the relentless Texas sun. Richard wandered in from his home office, still in his polo and khakis, the uniform of the upwardly mobile. And Ethan's face lit up like a kid at Six Flags. Happy Father's Day.
Dad, well.
To the family. Anyway, Ethan boomed, slapping Richard on the back. Lila hovered, her perfect bob haircut unmoving in the humidity, handing over a gift bag that looked like it cost more than my weekly grocery run. Richard peeled back the tissue paper, and there it was, the mug. Plain white, innocuous, with that world's okayest mom scrawl in Comic Sans that screamed passive-aggressive.
Ah.
Live. From Lila and Vic, he said, planting a peck on my cheek that felt like sandpaper. I forced a laugh, poured coffee to match the pancakes, and that's when it happened. The dark liquid swirled, catching the light just so, and those words emerged like a devil's whisper. You were always second. Time to switch. My stomach dropped faster than a rig worker down a dry well. Who the hell etches a message like that? I glanced at Lila, who averted her eyes, fiddling with her phone. Ethan was too busy high-fiving Richard over the Harley keys outside. And Victoria, Vic, as they called her, the Ashford golden child who'd clawed her way to VP at a boutique law firm in Dallas, had sent it overnight from her Highlander condo. No doubt with a smirk. I set the mug down hard, the crack spiderwebbing the base like my fracturing trust. Cute joke, I muttered to no one. But inside, alarms blared. That night, after the barbecue ribs and Shiner Bock flowed like the Brazos River, I couldn't sleep. Richard snored beside me, his belly rising like a seismic wave, oblivious. I slipped into the bathroom, the marble cold under my bare feet, and stared at my reflection. 48 years old, lines etching my eyes from night shifts I'd pulled to put Ethan through UT Austin, hair going gray at the temples despite the expensive highlights. Who was this woman? And why did the mug's words feel like a prophecy? The next morning, I drove to Victoria's office unannounced, the mug wrapped in a dish towel like contraband. Dallas traffic was a beast, horns blaring on I-35, semis hauling fracking gear, but I wove through it, heart pounding like a bass drum at a Willie Nelson concert. Vic's firm was in a glass tower off Clyde Warren Park. All sleek lines and lobby art that screamed, "I'm better than you." The receptionist, a Botoxed 20-something, eyed me like I'd tracked in Permian dust. Olivia Hargrove Ashford to see Victoria Ashford.
Now.
She buzzed me up, and there was Vic, perched behind a desk bigger than our dining table, her power suit tailored sharper than a switchblade. Blonde,
Blue-eyed.
the kind of Texas beauty that came with a pedigree and a price tag. Liv, what a surprise. Coffee, cut the crap. Vic. This. I slammed the mug down, the etched words facing her like an indictment. She leaned back, lips curling into that lawyer's smile, cool, calculated, the one that had buried more skeletons than a backhoe at a pet cemetery.
Oh, that.
A little family fun. Darling. Father's Day levity. You take everything so seriously. Levity. This says time to switch. What the hell does that mean? Vic's eyes flicked to the window, overlooking the city skyline where deals were done and dreams died.
She sighed.
Theatrical as a soap opera diva. Sit down. Olivia. You've been carrying this long enough. Carrying what? That's when she spilled it, not with tears, but with the precision of a deposition. 20 years ago, right after Ethan was born, Richard had been spiraling. The oil bust of '86 had hit late, echoes lingering into the '90s, and he'd made a play for a wildcat well in the Eagle Ford shale that tanked spectacularly. Debts piled up like tumbleweeds. But it wasn't just money, it was a mistake. A big one. Richard, in a haze of desperation and Jack Daniels, had cooked the books at Exxon, not enough to land him in federal pound-me-in-the-ass prison, but enough to get fired, blackballed. He confessed it all to Vic one night at the ranch, drunk and broken. "And you," I whispered, the room spinning like a centrifuge. Vic's gaze hardened. I fixed it. Pulled strings with Daddy's old cronies. Buried the audit trail. But the heat was on. Live. They needed a fall guy. Someone expendable.
Me.
I'd been the night shift nurse, moonlighting as a freelance bookkeeper for Richard's side hustles to make ends meet. Innocent as a lamb at a rodeo, I'd signed off on ledgers without a second glance. When the feds came sniffing SEC tip line, anonymous, probably a jealous colleague, they pinned it on me. A slap on the wrist, probation, community service, a stain on my record that killed any chance of advancing in nursing. I bore it all, thinking it was bad luck. A clerical error. Richard got the promotion 6 months later, climbing to director while I scrubbed floors at home. You let me take the fall, I said, voice flat as the panhandle. For him. For the family. Vic shrugged, filing her nails. Family first, Olivia. You're not blood. You're the help who got lucky. Not blood. The words landed like a gut punch. I'd given up everything, my career, my dreams of opening a clinic in rural Oklahoma for this? For a man who'd let his sister play puppet master while he rode off into the sunset on metaphorical Harleys? I left that office a ghost, driving aimlessly through uptown, past the trendy bars where power couples sipped Cosmos and plotted takeovers. My phone buzzed Ethan, texting about a double date with Lila and Richard at Papido. Normalcy.
Lies.
That night, I confronted Richard in our bedroom, the king-sized bed mocking me with its empty space. It's true, isn't it? I said, holding up the mug like Exhibit A. He didn't deny it. Just sat there, head in hands, the man who'd once whispered sweet nothings now reduced to a whimper. Live. I was scared. We had a kid.
Vic.
She said it was the only way. The only way to save your ass. I laughed, bitter as black coffee. And now Ethan's married into it. Lila knows. Doesn't she? They all do. He nodded, eyes wet. It was supposed to stay buried. The switch. It was Vic's idea. To remind you of your place. My place. Second fiddle in my own life. Rage boiled up, hot as jalapeno poppers from a Whataburger run. But it wasn't just anger, it was a plan forming, dark and delicious. The kind that simmers slow like brisket in a smoker. Revenge wasn't a dish best served cold, it was a feast, plated with precision. And I was starving. The next week, I started digging. Not with a shovel, but with the digital pickaxe of a woman scorned. I hired a PI out of Deep Ellum, a grizzled ex-cop named Hank who chain-smoked camels and knew every backroom deal in Dallas. Cost me half my emergency fund, but worth every penny. Hank uncovered the threads, emails from Vic to Richard dated 2004. Coded language about the substitution and bearing the weight. The SEC file on me? Sealed. But Hank greased palms and got the redacted version, my signature forged. Sloppy but overlooked because I was just the wife. Deeper still, the body swap. Not literal. Not some sci-fi fever dream. But a soul-crushing exchange. Vic had orchestrated more than finances. In 2010, when Richard's father, Big Jim Ashford, died of a heart attack on the ranch, the will was a mess. Assets split unevenly, with a codicil leaving the bulk to Victoria if Richard proved unworthy. Unworthy? Turns out, Big Jim knew about the fraud, had confronted Richard weeks before croaking. Vic, ever the spider, convinced Richard to switch the blame, poison the old man's pills with something to induce the attack, make it look natural. But Richard balked. So Vic did it herself. And who took the hit? Again. The toxicology report flagged anomalies. But I was the one administering his meds as the dutiful daughter-in-law. The outsider. Cleared after a tragic accident, but the whispers followed. That Oklahoma girl. Always hovering. I'd borne 2 crimes. Financial fraud and unwitting accessory to murder. All while raising Ethan. Hosting Thanksgiving turkeys. And pretending the Ashfords were family. Vic held the strings. Richard the scissors. And I the punching bag. Hank's last report landed like a bombshell. Vic was gunning for more. With Ethan married to Lila, she was positioning him as the heir apparent to the Ashford empire, bypassing Richard, who was softening in his 50s. The Harley?
A bribe.
A symbol of allegiance. And the mug? A warning shot. Switch places. Olivia. Step aside, or we'll bury you deeper. I stared at the dossier in my kitchen, the same one where I'd cracked that mug. Enough. Time to flip the script. My first move was controversial as hell. I seduced Hank for more dirt. Not with sex, God.
No.
The man's breath could wilt agave, but with whiskey and wiles. Coaxing confessions over late-night stakeouts. He spilled on Vic's side hustle, laundering ranch profits through a chain of Austin strip clubs, fronts for Russian oligarch money. Risky, but potent. My second decision? Even darker. I reached out to Ethan's ex, a sorority girl from SMU named Brooke, who'd ghosted after discovering Lila's family perks. Brooke had screenshots, texts from Lila mocking me as the help with a ring. Betrayal layered on betrayal. Like onions on a chili dog. But the real hook sank in when I decided to play the long game. No guns blazing like a Tarantino flick. This was Texas slow burn. The kind where grudges fester like untreated chiggers. I started small. Anonymous tips to the IRS about Ashford tax dodges. Whispers to Richard's golf buddies about Vic's questionable ethics. Chaos rippled. Board meetings canceled. Richard's blood pressure spiking to hypertensive crisis levels. Ethan noticed first.
Mom.
You okay? You seem distant. We met for coffee at a strip mall Starbucks. The kind with drive-through and overpriced lattes.
His eyes.
So like mine. Searched my face. Just tired.
Kiddo.
Marriage treating you well? He hesitated, stirring his Americano. Lila's great. But Uncle Richard. He's been weird. Talking about old mistakes. I smiled. Sweet as pecan pie. Families have those. Hold on tight.
Ethan.
Some switches aren't worth flipping. He frowned, but I let it hang. Plant the seed. Let it grow thorns. As summer baked Dallas into a skillet, my plans escalated. Controversial? Hell yes, I hacked Vic's email. Not me personally. Hank had a nephew, a millennial coder with a felony for fun, who owed him favors. We got in through a phishing link disguised as a charity gala invite. Jackpot. Correspondence with a shady biotech firm in Houston. Something about neural mapping and identity transference. Sci-fi bullshit? At first. But dig deeper. Vic was funding experimental trials, brain scans to digitize consciousness, a Hail Mary for Big Jim's dementia in his final years. The switch wasn't metaphor, it was literal. They'd tested it on lab rats. Swapping neural patterns, behaviors flipping overnight. And the mug? A taunt, hinting they'd considered it for me, erasing Olivia. installing a compliant Ashford drone. My blood ran cold as creek water. If they could swap souls in a lab, what else? The murder, the fraud, it all clicked. Vic hadn't just covered tracks, she'd rewritten lives. Climax brewed like a norther. I arranged a family summit at the ranch, Labor Day weekend, under the guise of reconciliation. Richard begged off golf in Scottsdale, but Ethan and Lila came, Vic sweeping in from a deposition like a storm front. The ranch house loomed, adobe walls baked terracotta, longhorns lowing in the distance. We gathered in the great room, antler chandeliers casting shadows like accusations. To family, I toasted with Cabernet, glasses clinking like handcuffs. Vic eyed me over the rim. To switches. The word hung. Ethan shifted, Lila pale as goat milk. I laid it out then, not all, but enough. The fraud. The fall guy.
The mug.
Gasps rippled. Richard absent, but his sins echoing via speakerphone from Arizona. You bitch, Vic hissed, face flushing under her bronzer. This is blackmail.
No. Victoria.
This is justice. You took my life, crimes, years, my goddamn soul. Time I took yours. Ethan stood.
Torn.
Mom? Dad? What the fuck? Lila clutched his arm. But I saw the crack, her loyalty fracturing. My first real win. But Vic was cunning. A rattler in stilettos. She laughed. Low and lethal. You think you can touch me? I'm the queen here. Olivia. You're the jester who got the joke too late. She stormed out. But not before slipping Ethan a USB drive. Proof, she whispered. Your mom's unhinged. I let her go. The hook was set.
Now.
Reel in the monster. Fall hit Texas like a hangover after a Longhorn tailgate, crisp edges to the air, leaves turning gold before crunching under truck tires, and that undercurrent of football fever masking deeper fevers. The ranch summit had cracked the facade, but like a fault line in the Barnett Shale, it needed pressure to erupt. I gave it time, playing the wounded matriarch, baking lemon bars for Ethan's office potluck, volunteering at Lila's Junior League auction, all while Hank's nephew monitored Vic's digital footprints. She was spiraling late-night calls to Russian contacts, frantic emails to the biotech lab about accelerating Project Echo. Echo, the neural swap. They'd moved beyond rats, human trials, black market volunteers from Houston's underbelly. Souls shuffled like cards in a high-stakes poker game at the lodge. I pored over the leaks in my walk-in closet, turned war room. Fairy lights strung like tripwires. Screenshots showed Vic's vision, not just erasing debts, but legacies. Big Jim's consciousness, digitized pre-death, ready to reincarnate in a compliant heir. Richard had been the test dummy, subtle implants during a routine checkup in 2012, tweaking his aggression, dulling his spine. That's why he'd let me rot. Not cowardice, but programming. And me, slated for erasure if I ever pushed back. The mug was the prod, switch, or be switched out. Controversial doesn't cover what I did next. Desperation breeds devils. And mine wore sensible flats. I drove to Houston under cover of a girls' trip lie, checking into a no-tell-motel off I-10, the kind with vibrating beds and roaches the size of chihuahuas. The biotech firm, Nexus Neural, hid in a strip mall between a taqueria and a vape shop, ironic camouflage for mad science. I posed as a grieving widow, spinster aunt bullshit, flashing forged creds Hank whipped up. The receptionist, A burnout with tribal tats. Bought it hook
Line.
and sinker.
Dr.
Kessler's in trials, she drawled, but I sweet-talked my way to a waiting room that smelled like bleach and bad decisions. Kessler emerged, mid-40s, lab coat over a cowboy's hoodie, eyes sharp as scalpels. MS. Hargrove, how can Nexus help? I spun the yarn. Ethan's episodes, blackouts since the wedding. Family history of dementia, like Big Jim. Kessler bit, Ashford money was catnip. He led me to a demo room. Walls lined with humming servers. A chair like something from a dentist's wet dream. Electrodes dangling like party streamers. Neural mapping, he explained. Pride swelling. We capture the essence, memories, traits, and transfer. Painless. Revolutionary. Like swapping souls? I asked. Casual as asking for ranch dressing. He chuckled. Nervous. Metaphorically. Vic MS. Ashford funds the ethical side. Restores lost loved ones. Ethical my ass. I pressed, feigning awe, until he spilled Project Echo's Dark Twin. Phantom shift. For the elite, oligarchs, CEOs, total overrights. Vic's endgame. Upload Big Jim into Ethan. The perfect vessel. Young and moldable. Richard? Doomed to fade.
Me?
Collateral. A glitch to be patched. I left with a flash drive of brochures. Actually Kessler's password. Swiped during a hug goodbye. Back in Plano. I handed it to the nephew coder. Burn her. Flames spread slow. First, I leaked the IRS tips with teeth. Nexus's shell companies. Vic's strip club laundromats funneling dirty rubles. Feds circled like vultures over roadkill. Richard called from Scottsdale. Voice cracking. Liv. What have you done? Vic's law license is under review. Good. I snapped. She stole mine. Ethan showed up at midnight. Rain sheeting the windows like judgment.
Mom.
Lila's freaking.
Cops at the ranch.
What the hell's going on? I pulled him inside. Our kitchen island a battlefield of takeout boxes from Meso Maya. Sit. Listen. No sugarcoating. The fraud. The murder. The neural nightmare. His face strained, jaw slack as a dropped jawbreaker. Dad knew? All this time?
Worse.
They plan to rewrite you.
Ethan.
Big Jim 2.0. He paced, fists clenched. The boy who'd lettered in baseball, now a man unraveling. I love Lila.
But this.
Fuck family. Choose, I said. The word a guillotine. Controversial? Forcing your kid to pick sides in a blood feud? Yeah. But survival's a bitch. He stormed out. But not before grabbing the dossier. Seed planted deeper. Vic countered vicious. A week later, my Volvo's brakes failed on Highway 121, tampered. Hank confirmed. Brake lines nicked like a mob hit. I swerved into the guardrail. Airbags deploying like white flags. Ribs bruised but breath intact. Message received. Back off. Or become a statistic. I didn't. Instead, I went nuclear. Anonymous post to the Dallas Morning News tip line. Ashford heiress funds mind control cult. Exaggerated? Sure. But juicy enough for ink. The story dropped mid-October. Front page below the fold. Tech firm linked to local dynasty probes, consciousness transfer ethics. Vic's photo. Stern in pearls. Caption like a wanted poster. Stock in Ashford Holdings dipped 8%. Richard's board seat wobbling. Panic set in. Lila called, voice trembling. Olivia?
Please.
Ethan's talking divorce.
Vix.
Unhinged. Unhinged is her brand. Honey. I softened. Maternal. Come over. No men. No agendas. She arrived at dusk. Porsche idling like a getaway car. We sat on the patio, string lights twinkling over the pool, cicadas droning a dirge. Lila, stripped of armor, jeans, no makeup, cracked like the mug. I knew bits. The fraud. Thought it was ancient. But the swap thing? Vic pitched it as therapy. For Ethan, after his anxiety spells that started post-wedding, implants, Lila. They wired your husband like a goddamn smart fridge. Tears welled. Mascara running black rivers. I love him. But Vic's my aunt. Blood. Blood's thinner than the lies it carries. I handed her a copy of the Phantom Shift files.
Read.
Then decide. She left at dawn. Files clutched like contraband Bibles. My gamble. Turn the pawn. Climax coiled tighter. Halloween night. Ethan texted. Ranch.
Now.
Showdown. The drive was a blur, jack-o'-lanterns flickering on porches. Kids in superhero capes dodging traffic like omens. The ranch gates creaked open, gravel crunching under tires. Inside. The great room was a powder keg, Vic in a witch's pantsuit, Richard flown back and fidgeting. Lila pale beside Ethan, who looked like he'd aged a decade. You called this circus, Olivia? Vic sneered, bourbon in hand. Or should I say, the ghost who won't haunt. I called truth. I tossed the Nexus drive onto the coffee table. It's skittering like a die. Play it. Ethan plugged it in, the flat screen flickering to life. Kessler's voice, recorded covertly by the nephew, confessions of illegal trials, Vic's sign-offs on host extractions. Gasps. Then silence thick as fog off the Trinity. Richard broke first.
Vic.
Big Jim, you killed him. She laughed. Manic. For us. Richie. You were too weak. The fall guy, Olivia, was perfect.
Quiet.
Grateful. Until now. Ethan whirled on Lila. You knew. Some, she wailed. I thought it was business. Business is murder now. He backed away. World crumbling. My moment. It's over.
Vic.
Feds have the tips. SEC's reopening my case. Nexus is toast. Her eyes narrowed. Serpent calculating. You think, one call, and your precious Ethan's the new fall guy.
Neural glitch, tragique suicide.
Bluff or not. It chilled. Richard lunged, grabbing her arm. No more. Sis. Enough. She wrenched free, pulling a compact from her purse, not makeup, but a sleek device. Nexus prototype. Wrong. Brother. Echo time. Panic surged. She aimed it at Ethan, some EMP pulse to trigger implants, but Lila moved first, tackling her aunt like a linebacker. They crashed into the hearth, grunts and curses echoing. I dove in, pinning Vic's arm, the device clattering free. Ethan stomped it, sparks flying like 4th of July gone wrong. Sirens wailed distant. Hank's tip to Dallas PD. Insurance.
Big Trasha.
Spitting venom. You'll rot for this. Olivia. All of you. Rot's your specialty. I hissed, knee in her back. Cuffs clicked as uniforms burst in, badges glinting under antlers. As they hauled her away, her glare burned. This isn't the end. But it felt like one. Ethan hugged me,
sobbing. Mom. I'm sorry.
Richard slumped to the corner,
Broken.
Lila hovered. Redeemed or ruined. Dawn broke over the ranch, pink as a fresh bruise. Yet doubt nagged. The twist loomed, unseen. November swept in with northern winds, stripping leaves from the live oaks like stripping illusions. Vic's arrest dominated the news cycle, heiress nabbed in money laundering. Tech fraud probe, her mugshot a far cry from society pages. Hair askew, eyes defiant. The Ashfords circled wagons, lawyers swarming like locusts. Daddy's old judge friends pulling strings for bail. She posted it in 48 hours, retreating to her Highland Park fortress. But the damage festered. Nexus shuddered. Kessler singing to feds for immunity. Spilling Echo's guts. Human trials on undocumented migrants. Switches that left shells walking Dallas streets, empty-eyed as husks.
Me?
I was the phoenix.
Or so it seemed.
SEC exonerated me fully. Forged SIGs confirmed. Record expunged. Nursing boards called. Offers for clinic gigs in Austin. A fresh start sans the stain. Ethan filed for annulment. Lila packing for her parents' condo in Frisco. Their marriage a casualty of the cull. I get it, Mom, he said over burgers at Shake Shack. The first real meal we'd shared in months. You saved me.
Saved. The word tasted like ash.
Richard moved out to a condo downtown. Space to reflect, his texts read. Reflection? More like evasion. The coward who'd let neural tweaks turn him puppet. I sold the McMansion. Pocketed enough for a bungalow in Oak Cliff, edgier. Realer. With murals on shotgun houses and taquerias that served carnitas, worth sinning for. But revenge's aftertaste is bitter. A hangover that lingers like stale Whataburger fries. I started therapy. Mandated post-dash incident with a shrink named Dr. Reyes who looked like Selena Gomez's wiser aunt. Sessions in her Lakewood office. Sunlight slanting through blinds. Unearthed the rot. Not just Vic's machinations, but my complicity. I'd ignored red flags for years. Richard's late nights. Ethan's anxieties mirroring Big Jim's rages. Borne the burdens because that's what good wives do. Right? American dream gospel. Sacrifice silent. Smile wide. Controversial choices define us, Dr. Reyes said one gray afternoon, as rain pattered like accusations. Yours saved lives. But at what cost? Cost? Sleepless nights.
Sure.
Paranoia spikes when trucks tail too close on I-20. But deeper, the moral quicksand. Leaking to the press? Vigilante justice. Texas style.
Akinbik.
Felony territory. Even if I skated. And the ranch brawl, assault charges dodged via self-defense, but Lila's tackle left bruises. Questions. Was I avenger or monster? Readers of the newsletter's page debated it weekly. Hero mom or hysterical harpy? Ethan thrived. Ironically. Divorced but unbowed. He pivoted to ethical finance. Whistleblower apps for core gone rogue. Your fight inspired me, he'd say. But his eyes held shadows, trust fractured like that Harley's chrome in a crash. Lila? Vanished to yoga retreats in Bali. Social media silent. Richard? Crumbled. Heart attack in December. Minor. But the doc warned, stress-induced. Echoes of Big Jim. he called from Methodist Hospital. Voice tubes garbled. Forgive me.
Leave.
Forgiveness. The ultimate switch. I visited, bringing Jell-O no one eats. The room beeping like a casino slot machine. He looked small, shrunken in the gown. The exec facade peeled away. I was weak. Vic. She promised it'd protect us. Us. Or you.
He said,
Holding his hand, cold, veined like marble cracks. You let her murder your father. Let her fry my career. Tears tracked his cheeks. The implants. They made me compliant. But I knew.
deep down. I'm sorry.
Sorry's a band-aid on a bullet wound. I squeezed once. Then left. The door clicking final as a gavel. Controversial? Denying absolution to a dying man?
Yeah.
But grace is earned, not owed. Christmas came quiet. Just Ethan and me stringing lights on the bungalow's porch. Tamales steaming from a neighbor's potluck.
No esforts.
No Harleys, just us. Rebuilding from rubble. He gifted me a new mug. World's fiercest mom, plain inside. No etchings. I laughed. Real for the first time in months. But the twist? It slithered in New Year's Eve. A call from Hank at 11:59 p.m. Fireworks popping over White Rock Lake. Olivia. You sitting. Never a good sign. He'd tailed Vic post-bail, habit.
He said.
Turns out, her fortress hit a bunker, echoes remnants. Servers humming with digitized ghosts. Big Jim's pattern? Intact. And the real bombshell, the switch wasn't Vic's brainchild. It was mine.
What?
My mind reeled. Champagne flute slipping. Flashback City, 2003. Pre-Ethan's teens. I confided in Vic over margaritas at mi cocina. Richard's gambling debts mounting. My nursing burnout acute. Wish we could swap lives sometimes, I joked. Half drunk. Me in your shoes, power. No diapers. You play house. She'd latched on. Twisted it into the fraud cover. Me as the swappable outsider. Then Echo. Funded partly by my donation. A check I'd signed blind for family medical research, cashed by Vic for Nexus kickbacks. Big Jim's murder?
Y de administrar match.
Yes. But Vic's tampering built on my offhand gripe. If only the old man would keel over and leave us be. Recorded. Weaponized. The truth reversed. I wasn't victim's soul. I'd sown seeds of the poison tree. Unwitting architect of my cage. Hank's voice crackled. She's coming for you. One last play. Upload Big Jim into Ethan. Frame you as the saboteur. Midnight struck. Bells tolling doom. I hung up, staring at the bungalow's glow. My fresh start. Now tainted. Controversial climax. Do I run? Confess to Ethan. Shatter his hero mom idol? Or finish it? One final switch. Dawn broke cold. January 1st, 2025. I drove to Vic's. Uninvited. The gates parting like jaws. She waited in the library. Fire crackling. A neural chair prototype humming ominous. Olivia. Punctual as execution. No preamble. It's over.
Beak.
I know the recordings. My words. Your deeds. We're both monsters. She poured scotch.
Neat.
Monsters?
Nah.
Survivors.
Texas breeds Inc.
You started the fire. I fanned it. We circled. Verbal duel like a hoedown gone feral. Upload Big Jim. And Ethan's gone.
Frame me?
Evidence points to you, Kessler's testimony. The drives. Her smile cracked. Then mutual destruction. I go down. You testify. Your jokes on tape, accessory to murder. Fraud enabler. Stalemate. The chair beckoned. A siren's hum. One switch, she whispered. You take Big Jim's echo. I get peace. Ethan free. Madness. But tempting, the ultimate controversial decision. Sacrifice self for son. Become the villain to end the cycle. Erase Olivia. Install the patriarch's ghost. Poetic justice.
Or suicide by science?
No, I said, voice steel. We burn it together. She lunged for a kill switch, self-destruct, but I was faster. Years of ER reflexes kicking in. We wrestled. Books tumbling like dominoes. The chair sparking as I yanked cords. Alarms wailed. Servers frying in acrid smoke.
Big skramat.
Clawing. You bitch. My legacy. Yours? It was borrowed. Feds. Hank's alert. Breached the gates. Tasers popping like popcorn.
Big slumpat.
Cuffed again. This time permanent. Conspiracy. Attempted murder. The works. As they let her out, she spat. You'll always be second.
No.
I was first flawed. Forged in fire. Epilogue?
Nota y dibao.
Ethan learned the truth over coffee in February. My confession a gut punch he swallowed slow. You were protecting me, he said. Hugging fierce. Still are. Richard passed in March. Peaceful. Forgiveness unspoken, but granted in silence. I opened the clinic in April. Oak Cliff's beacon for the overlooked migrants. Single moms. Souls swapped by circumstance. Ending happy? Debatable. Vic rots in federal lockup. Appealing till doomsday. Echoes ghosts? Deleted. But echoes linger in nightmares. In the mirror where Olivia stares back. Wiser. Wearier. Tragic? Perhaps. The cost of vengeance, a hollow victory. Or triumphant, a woman who switched the script, reclaimed her skin. You decide. After all, in America, revenge is as personal as the Alamo and twice as bloody.